We're going to continue with our discussion on the Enlightenment by focusing on salons today. We did briefly discuss salons in the last video, but we're going to discuss them a little bit more in depth today. So, salons actually started in France, and in France, thinkers were called philosophes, or which is French for philosophers. And these philosophers were the champions of the ideas of reason in government and society. And it was in France where these philosophers really caught on. Philosophers would gather in informal meetings, usually in a wealthy person's home. And in these meetings called salons, they exchanged ideas and debated for hours and hours. A great way for you to remember the definition of a salon is to think of what it would be like if you were to go to a hair salon today. If you arrive at a hair salon and the hairdresser is working on your hair, you're usually going to have a nice long conversation and exchange ideas. The same thing occurs in the salons during the Enlightenment. Now, these salons are usually organized by very wealthy women. Gatherings like these help to shape and spread the ideas of the Enlightenment. And because women were the ones who tended to host these salons, it also helped empower and create a foundation for women's rights as well. So think pair share. We can't really pair today, but think to yourself, what is the purpose of a salon? And if we had a salon today, what do you think the conversation would be about? So why is all of this important? Well, it's important for many different reasons. Many of our own ideas about government, such as the Declaration of Independence and the American Constitution, got their ideas directly from the Enlightenment. In fact, many of America's founding fathers studied the ideas of the Enlightenment thinkers during the American Revolution. And it was actually because of these ideas of the Enlightenment that the Americans, us, had our revolution and became free from British rule. And through our success, eventually the French would do the same. So, brain check. Which of these was greatly influenced by the Enlightenment? A, the Mandate of Heaven. B, the Magna Carta. C, the Catholic Church. D, the American Revolution. Do you know the answer? The correct answer is D. The American Revolution was directly and greatly influenced by the Enlightenment. Enlightenment thinkers rejected authority and upheld freedom of individuals to think for themselves. Another great Enlightenment thinker is a man that we have already discussed during the scientific revolution, René Descartes, who said, "I think, therefore I am." Because of Descartes coming up with all these philosophical agreements and ideas, he became a very influential philosopher during this time. So the Enlightenment obviously had a huge influence over government. Enlightenment thinkers criticized many of the ideas people had at that time about government. Some questioned the medieval belief in the idea of the divine right of kings, or basically the idea that God chose a country's king and that the king got his authority from God. So people would say, you can't say anything bad about the king, you shouldn't overthrow the king because God chose the king. And the Enlightenment thinkers started to say, well, we've got some kings who do some pretty sinful things. Maybe God doesn't want this guy to be king. Maybe the king does not have the divine right to rule. So the belief in the divine right of kings slowly started to be picked apart. Many Enlightenment thinkers stressed individual rights that the governments must respect. the idea of individual rights is still fairly new in history. Not everyone in the world throughout history understood this idea or even had access to individual rights. It wasn't something that existed for everyone. But Enlightenment thinkers also felt that people should have a say in their government. So you shouldn't just be blindly ruled. You should have a say in your government, which is why we get to vote today. I voted. Hope your parents did. So, brain check. What old medieval concept about government did Enlightenment thinkers reject? Is it, it is the divine right of kings. I didn't realize this wasn't a multiple choice one. Name one thing they did believe about government. What is one thing that the Enlightenment thinkers did believe about government? Possible answers could be they believed that people had individual rights, people had a say in government, and yes, once again, kings did not have the divine right to rule. Okay, how did the Enlightenment influence religion? Well, Enlightenment thinkers believed humans were capable of discovering truth for themselves. Many believed in an all-powerful deity or God, and many were Christians and went to church, but not necessarily believed in a specific church or a particular holy book. They might have gone to church at the time because that was the culture, but they may not have believed that Jesus was the Son of God or that there was any one true God. They did believe that there was a creator that created the world. They just didn't really know who he was. So they called themselves deists. Deist means that they are someone who believes in God, a deity. They believe in a deity or a God, but they're not really sure what else to believe in. And many of our own founding fathers were deists. In what way was the Enlightenment similar to the scientific revolution? A, both focused on government and society. B, both highly valued reason and observation. C, both denied the existence of God. D, both were unimportant. Do you know the answer? The answer is B. The Enlightenment and the scientific revolution both highly valued reason and observation, which is why you will see some of these names, such as René Descartes, used in the Enlightenment era and in the scientific revolution era as well. So here's your out the door brain check. Take your time, do your best. What is another name for the Enlightenment? Another name for the Enlightenment is the Age of Reason. Where would people meet to discuss ideas during the Enlightenment? If you said salons, you would be correct. What is the period during the 1600s and 1700s in which educated Europeans changed their outlook on life by seeing reason as the key to human progress? If you said the Enlightenment, you would be correct. The Enlightenment took the reason of the scientific revolution and used it for what? If you said they used it for government or society, you would be correct. Okay, that's it for today. I hope you guys learned a lot, and good luck with your assignments.